Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in to this video specifically because I really feel strongly that God has told me to release my testimony. And it's long. Let me just tell you that. It is long, and I don't want to miss any parts because there's so many things that have happened to me, both good and bad. And I think it's really important when we share our testimonies that we really can share with how good God is in every circumstance that comes into our lives, even through the really difficult ones. And, I've been walking with the Lord now for almost 14 years. I'm coming into my 14th year with Him. And when I say that, I mean, I was raised in the church when I came to about I think it was about 5 or 6 years old. My mom started bringing us to church, but life happens, right? And you fall away from your belief systems, and then when I fully came back, it was when I was 23 years old, and so so now it's going on like 14 years, and I'm just really blessed to be here. I'm really blessed for every single thing that I've been through. And there's something that happens when we go through the tests of life, the trials and the tribulations that we have to face here on earth. And then it becomes our testimony. Romans 8:28, everybody loves to quote that and says that God turns all things around for good. But the second part of that is God turns all things around for good for those who love Him. And in order to love Him, there's so many things in that. Like, we love Him, we get to know His word, we begin to love ourselves and begin to understand what agape love is, so we can finally look at our situations without a victim mentality, and we really come up higher into being victorious over any situation that comes into our lives. So anyways, just wanted to share that as I begin. So I'm going to be very vulnerable. If you guys have ever shared your testimony, you know how vulnerable it can be because you're letting people into your heart. You're letting complete strangers into your heart. But again, it's all to glorify God. It's all to glorify His goodness. So here I am, and I'm going to share. And there's probably going to be, like I said before, a lot of videos. So please stay tuned. This will just be the first one as I'm led to share whatever I feel to share in this first video. So for those of you who know, and a lot of you don't, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of new people that pop on here and get to know me. So I went through a ton of sexual abuse when I was a child. It started at the age of 3, and it went on until really about the age of like 13. And then at that time, I had built up so many walls in my heart and didn't know my identity. And I ran to things that would fulfill that, right? I ran to the things that hurt me because that's basically what I knew. That's how my brain started to wire love as a child. So I want to share with you, though, the intricate details of what happened on a PG-13 level, just because I think it's really important what opened the door for this to happen. Because I have so many people, so many Christians especially, that ask me, how did you get through it? How did you overcome these things, and why did God allow it? That's a really tricky question. Why did God allow it? Because yes, nothing gets through the hand of God to come into our lives. However, there are so many things that we have to keep in mind of what is allowed. And a lot of times God has to work through our free will. And so for me, what had happened, we're all marked with things too. Like, God literally has such a plan and a purpose on everyone's life before we're even born. It talks about that in the Bible. It talks about that you were chosen and you were destined, and He thought of you before you were even in your mother's womb. Like, He had a plan and a purpose for us. So, what He began to bring to me after so many years and really coming in to know Him and know myself is that I was actually destined for purity, for pure love, to love people unconditionally. And that is something that I truly do. If you know me, if you've been friends with me, you've seen my heart. You know that I love hard and I jump in fully, and I want to get to know you, and I want to be with you as much as I can, and just really love well. And so that's always been who I've been. However, the enemy came in and tried to steal that at a very young age, at 3 years old. And I want to share this too, because this is really, really intricate, and I hope that I'm just going to expose things, okay? So something happened with my father and his sister back in the day, okay? She was young too, wasn't as young as me, but something had happened, with that was very similar to my situation, but it was not as bad. So I want to talk about this because these are generational curses. If we, as Christians, do not break generational curses, they will continue. They will continue to happen because we are not using our authority to break those off, to break the strongholds in our lives, to break the attacks that the enemy brings into our lives and wanting to bring into our children's lives. And so it's so important that we realize what these generational curses are, and we actually turn them into blessings. And then we can actually leave a legacy, leaving, amazing blessings for our kids. And once we build them up, then they can leave amazing blessings for their kids. So follow me here. So at the young age of 3, I was put into a position where I had to do things to another little boy who was 3 years old. He was a neighbor of ours. We lived right outside of Chicago in a small duplex area. And so there was like these little duplexes all around, and all the kids would hang out. And unfortunately, it wasn't the greatest of neighborhoods. And so things can happen, right? Again, not God doing this to me, but things in the circumstances in the area around me, and also generational curse from my parents, and then also, free will of man. So my brother had this older friend, and my brother was only like 5 at this time, and he had an older friend who must have been like, I want to say like 8 or 9, maybe even 10. He was older than us, but he always came in and it was, being friends with me and my brother. But he had some serious issues. He was he was a bully, and it was just really bad. But anyways, he decided that he thought it would be fun to take me and this little boy in front of all of their friends and have me do sexual things to this little boy, undress us, and have us do these things. So that was at the age of 3. Now, I don't fully remember exactly what happened after that. As I've shared my testimony with my mom, she actually revealed to me that CPS was called, actually. The little boy that, they made us do things with, his parents, he told his parents, and his parents actually called CPS on my parents. And so my parents, we were taken, me and my brother were taken for 3 days, and I don't remember that. But I wanted to share that one point because God will always try to intervene. Hear me. God will always try to intervene, but then he still has to work through the free will of man. And this is really important. As I'm sharing my testimony, I'm going to share and explain things about this because I think that it's going to help you if you've been through really hard things. It's so hard. We have to walk through the forgiveness. We have to work through the layers upon layers in our soul where the enemy loves to hide these things and create these walls and strongholds in our lives that hold us back from our destiny. So I'm going to be sharing throughout my testimony just kind of bits and pieces, of why things happen or understanding. So, so we got taken to CPS and nothing came of it. I guess me and my brother did not say anything. And that was really sad because I think that if we would have said something, things could have stopped. But, and this is I'm not blaming my parents at all. I love my parents. They're amazing. They had to work really, really hard. They worked, 40 to 80 hours a week sometimes while me and my brother had to be with babysitters and things like that while we were young. And so it was just, they did the best that they could, right? So, but I love my parents dearly, and this is not to put blame on anything. It's just to explain how things happen. So, okay. So I went through molestation for years. This older boy, I was friends with my brother. He would do things to me in private constantly, bringing me over to his house, or whether it was in, a wooded area or whatever. And he would do things to me sexually. And then when we would be out in public with me, my brother, and all of his friends, because of course my brother's older and I wanted to hang out with him all the time, I would want to hang out and go do things, and he would be insanely mean to me, like beat me up, push me down, punch me, like, just constantly. I mean, one time he took a plastic baseball bat to my head. Like, I mean, there was serious bullying going on with this kid. And then it wasn't until actually later on in life, I had blocked so many things out when I was a kid, because our brains are amazing, right? God allows us to block things out to be able to deal with trauma later in life when we're ready to actually face it. So when I gave my life back to the Lord when I was 23 years old, he began to soften my heart. And in this time, I began to have flashbacks of things that happened to me when I was a kid. Now, I'm not saying that this happens to everybody, and I'm not saying that God will always bring you back to the place where the trauma happened for you to relive it. For me, he had me relive it, and he had me walk through the fire to show me that he was there, he was with me. So this guy, this kid, I started having flashbacks, and these flashbacks consisted of me being molested by him, his brother, and his father. And I was in like this basement area, and I was even tied to chairs, and while sexual things were being done, and horrible horror movies were being played. So now, this is like, right, you're thinking, oh my God, this is so sick and twisted. And it is. It's very sick and twisted. How can a human being do this? And it's very important to realize that, these are human beings that were obviously being controlled by demonic entities. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Like, I mean, it's just like, why people have these mass murderers and these serial killers, whatever. There's truly demonic entities that they've opened themselves up to, and they're making the choice. Don't worry, I'm not saying that they're innocent by any means, but they're making a choice to partner with the demonic to be able to do these things. So anyways, so the demonic was actually open to me at a very young age. This was probably when I was like 5 years old, when I was having flashbacks. I was very young. My feet couldn't touch the ground. I remember sitting on this cold chair, and I couldn't touch the ground. And these movies that were playing, and I'm talking like this was back in the late 80s. So you've got, Child's Play, Chucky, you've got It, all these horrible dolls, and like all these crazy demonic movies, horror films that were out at that time, that they would just play each time that they would do sexual things to me. So the door of the demonic was open to me at a very young age. So I was afraid of a lot of things. I had night terrors for years. I mean, years. I literally didn't get delivered from night terrors probably until I was about 26 years old. And literally, I mean, my parents can attest to this. I would crawl into their, like right by their bed, and like sleep underneath their bed, like beside them, because, they wouldn't want me to sleep in bed with them, and they would tell me I have to go back to my room, but I would be so scared, and I would literally remember bringing my blanket and just laying there next to them just to feel some sort of safety, because the dreams were so incredibly real, and the demonic and all of that. So I share this with you because these are intense things, and I don't think that enough people share these intense things that you go through. And it's important to share, because what happens is when we share, we shine light upon the darkness, and then we become free. We can start to become free. So this is why I'm sharing the intimate details, even though, it might be hard for some people to even hear things like this, but it's the reality of life. It's the reality of life that we live in today. We live in a fallen world, and things are crazy. And I just think that there's so many people who have been through so much abuse and things, and they get into this shameful place where they feel like they can't share. And now I'm literally so incredibly free that I can talk about these things, and it's such a blessing that I've been through these things, because now I can help other people get through these things and become delivered themselves. So okay, so that had happened, and then at about the age of, I want to say 11 things just started happening. It was crazy. I'm not gonna lie when I say this, but it was almost like I had an invisible molest me sign on top of my head, like a big red flashing light, because it was like everywhere that I went, the door was open sexually for me with people. It was so weird. Even if it was just like perverted touching, or and didn't go further than that, but it was still like very uncomfortable and very crossing the line. I was another instance that happened. I'll just share one. There's quite a bit, but I'll just share one specifically. I had a friend who, her dad, every time that I would go over to their house and sleep over, note to friends too, or note to parents right here, be careful who your kids stay the night at. Make sure that you know their parents, their lifestyle, who your kids are hanging out with. Like, very important, right? Again, no blame on my parents. They were very busy. This is different generations, but now I think that there's just so much that we need to really be aware of. So anyway, so I would go over to this friend's house, and mind you, her house was like chaotic all the time. I mean, everything was like immaculate in the house because her mom was a clean freak, but her mom was like psychotic on another level, cheating on her father. All this weird stuff was happening. And here I'm like 10 or 11, right? And I'm being exposed to like so many different things. And her dad, every time, like sometimes he would always want to go night swimming with us. And of course, like we were like, ooh, night swimming, and it didn't have, it was like exciting for us at this age because it was something that we got to do that wasn't normal, right? Like you got to be like, ooh, this is awesome. This is like what adults do, and we get to participate. So we started going night swimming every time that I would spend the night over there. And this didn't happen right off the bat. Of course, this is how people groom you, right? You have to be aware for grooming, even as adults, like we got to be super aware of grooming. There's going to be more stories later on when I tell you about things that happened for the grooming that happened to me and led me down several wrong roads later on in life. But so we'd have like night swims, and probably, I don't know, call it like the 10th time, all of a sudden, my friend would have to go inside to go to the bathroom, and then that was when he would, be touching me inappropriately. And even when she was there, it was like so awkward because he'd be putting me up on the floaties or whatever and going inside my bathing suit, and just super awkward things. And so it started like that. And of course, mind you, I'm already being molested by somebody else. So even though I know that this is wrong, because now that this is like a full on, like, this is my friend's dad, like I feel, and mind you, at this time too, I'm not remembering what's going on from my childhood that already happened with an older person. So now, like, I can remember fully, like, that feeling of being violated, by an older man. I mean, and I'm sure that there's a lot of women that are going to watch this, or men, that have been violated by an older man. And it's one thing to be violated by a peer, like to be bullied by your peers. That's bad too. But there's something that happens when an older person, because there's an authority there, that automatically starts to put up walls in your heart, and it's really hard to break free of this. So every time I would go over to her house, he would do things to me, and even it would be like we would be watching a movie, and then we would fall asleep on the couch, and he would wake me up, and he would just be inappropriate with me. And you're talking, this is a 45-year-old man, and I'm like 11 years old. So, so then I had to go through that, which was no fun. And then we did finally move, thank God. That was probably one of the best decisions my parents ever made. We moved out into the country, and it was good. I'm going to share a couple more things though, because I tend, in my testimony, I tend to like want to skip over parts, but there's so many things that have happened to me, and I want to share it because what's going to come in the future, like right now, I'm writing courses, I have books that I'm writing. There are a lot of things that I have learned how to overcome wrong mindsets, wrong belief systems, how to deal with roots in your heart, how to deal with the layers in our soul, right? Our mind, will, and our emotions. How do we get rid of those things? How do we actually live a successful life? How am I here talking to you guys with such peace and joy and love and having such a countenance as if like nothing ever happened to me in my past? I meet so many people who meet me and they're like, God, they hear my testimony and they're like, I can't believe, like, you can't even see an ounce of that on you. And honestly, that is what knowing the true identity of Christ does for people. It's so amazing. So I just want to share a couple more things in this old neighborhood where we lived, and because these are, your formative years are where your identity is created, right? Your young years, 0 to 3, psychology will tell you 0 to 3, you don't have much memory, but the 3 to 10 are like such formative years. And then of course, your middle school years are like so important too, to groom you for where you're going to go in your teenage years. And so it's just, all of it's important, but especially I feel like the 3 to 10-year-old mark, 3 to 12 is like so crucial, to either make you or break you in life. And I know that I'm a walking miracle. So while we were in this neighborhood, there were just crazy things that would happen. You'd have like creepy people out of nowhere. Like one time I had this guy that came up to us on a bicycle, asking me and my friend, as we were on a walk one day, and asking us if we knew where this garage sale was at this address. And he was asking us if we would be willing to bring him there. And then all of a sudden, like, he's on a bicycle and he starts rubbing his you-know-what on his bike, and he's wearing these short shorts, like literally like 1960s short shorts, unacceptable for any male to wear. I'm sorry if you're a male watching this and you wear short shorts, just be careful of that. Anyways, it was so unacceptable. And he starts rubbing it on there, and he's like, do you guys know where I can pee? And and I literally was just like, there's either a Walgreens up the street that you can go, or find a bush, man, like, and we're out of here. And thank God I had discernment at that age, even though I was so broken. But I grabbed my friend's hand and we left right away. But I just share this with you because this is like the creepy things that would happen in this neighborhood that we lived in. Another time, I had I don't know if it was honestly like gang members or what, but there was like super ghetto people in a car that followed me home one night. I was leaving my friend's house. I was on my bicycle driving down the street, and all of a sudden this car behind me had no lights on, and then turned their lights on and like revved up super fast. And these guys were hanging out the window and they were screaming at me. And saying, we're gonna come and get you, like all this stuff. And so I'm like riding my bicycle like crazy. I have to cut through this backyard, go into like this, we lived by these like 2 water treatment, like lake places, whatever. So I had to go down around the lake, and thank God, like we used to hang out in sewers. I don't know, kids did that back in the day. We'd play and we'd go and hang out, and you thought it was the cool thing to do, to go spray paint sewers and just hang out in there. So anyways, I knew of one that I actually could fit inside of, that I knew nobody else could really get into, because it was an iron grate on top of this gate, and there was like this little square that I could literally fit into, because I'm thin, and back then I was even skinnier. I was super skinny. And so I was able to I ditched my bike like the opposite direction, and then I booked and drove, because they had now parked their car and they're like chasing after me, and I'm hearing gunshots. So it was like full on like crazy. Like, even though I saw lights turning on too, because there was all these houses, obviously the lights were turning on in all these houses after the gunshots, but I was like so afraid. I didn't know. I don't know. My first thing was to just run and hide. I didn't go to any house. And I knew where the sewer was, and I run to the sewer, and I jump in the sewer, and mind you, like, it was a super tight fitting square that was cut out in this wrought iron like gate that was over the sewer. And I remember like going, and it sliced, like it like whoosh, like cut, open the skin, scratched me, and I like had to go in there. And I literally remember going into the sewer, and here it's nighttime, okay, and I am a 12-year-old girl at this time, and I'm fearful anyways. Like, this is not my thing. I don't go in sewers at night, especially alone. I'm scared of the dark at this time, okay? Because again, I've had night terrors for years. So for me, this was like super traumatizing, super terrifying. I literally sat in that sewer for probably 3 hours until I could come out, until I felt safe enough to come out. I could hear them doing cat calls and whistling and calling for me. And I just sat in that sewer, like super terrified. And my parents had called the police. They'd called obviously the friend where I was at, and nobody could find me. And then I finally was able to crawl out of that sewer, find my bike, thank God, and then ride home. Now, I remember riding home, and literally by the time that I got home, I was like hyperventilating. My parents had to give me a paper bag. I couldn't breathe. Like, I was so incredibly scared. And thank God, like, this had happened, and then my brother, who is in, gosh, he would have been, I think, a freshman at this time. So I was in 7th grade, and yeah, I think he was like a freshman, and he literally almost like in the same like month time that had happened to me. And then my brother came home from school one day, and he was pretty traumatized. I remember him being like, telling the story. He like full on adrenaline, but at the same time, like I remember seeing like, man, dude, this really messed him up. But he watched a kid get beat over the head with a wet t-shirt and locks, like, a old style lock that you put on a locker, and you have the dial, to open it up with, and beat over the head with that, and then stabbed with a pen. So I just share this because this is kind of the neighborhood and just different things that we participated in. And you could drive down there today, and it's nothing like the projects, don't get me wrong, like it's nothing like that, but it was a lower income area, where just people like that lived. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with you because I've had to overcome a lot of trauma. And also, one more thing before we leave this old neighborhood section. When I was 11 years old, I really felt done. Like I felt done. I didn't understand things. I was going to church with my mom. I'd go to church, and then I'd get really mad at God because of all these things that were happening to me, and I didn't understand. And I had all these questions, right? And so when I was 11 years old, I actually hung myself. There was a tree right behind my house where we used to just play around in it, and there was like this old twine that was in my garage, and I used that, and I wrapped it around my neck, and I jumped, climbed up the tree and jumped, and praise God that twine broke. And not only that, it literally did nothing to the structure of my neck, like nothing. I mean, you hear people doing that, and like really messes up your, your C area and your spine. And I had none of that. And the only thing that I had was extreme rope burn. I had a horrible rope burn around my neck, of course, and then like a mark. And you're probably like, oh my God, like how did your parents not know, right? Well, I was a very good liar and hider. I had learned how to hide things since I was 3 years old, so it became natural to me to just lie about the scary things when I had to. So I just said that I was climbing the tree, which was very normal for me because I was like a monkey. I loved to climb trees, and I slipped, and that there was just twine up there, and I got caught in it. And yeah, and so anyways, that was a really, really traumatic time in my life. And I'm sure you can relate, thinking back to when you were 11 years old. If you had a good childhood, you're probably like, my goodness, like you're such a baby at 11, right? And then I'm sure there's some of you that have had really rough childhoods, and you can probably relate to that, wanting to end your life. And yeah. So I want to try and keep these videos to like 30 minutes. So I want to continue my testimony, but those were like my earlier years. And then I really want to get into more of when I really came back to the Lord. And I have so many more things like that are even more difficult than this that are probably going to blow your mind. But it's so amazing. It's truly so amazing when you can walk through, again, like I said, the fire and come out unscorched. And that's the power of God. It's the power of what He can do. And He can heal us in amazing ways. So yeah, I just want to pray over you if you don't mind. I just want to pray, and then there'll be a part 2 coming for the next part of my testimony. Please stay tuned because these are going to be amazing stories. Like the things that I'm about to share next are things that you cannot make up. Like God became so incredibly real in my life, and I can't wait to share that part. Like what I just shared, obviously those were difficult and maybe even really hard for some of you to hear, but it's my life. It's part of me. And I think it's important that we share, because I know that there's several other people who have been through very similar things, and probably worse than me. So yeah, let me pray over you. Father God, I thank you for every single person who watches this. I thank you, God, for softening their heart. I thank you, Lord, for forgiveness to come upon them, for them to choose to forgive the things that have been done to them. Lord, there's something miraculous that happens when we invite you into every situation in our lives. And God, I just ask that you come in to every person's life who watches this. Jesus, have your way. Come in, help them. Reveal areas to them that they need to face, Lord. Help them overcome anything and everything that they're still struggling with, Lord. And Lord, I hope that, God, by sharing my testimony, that it really gives people hope, and that it really gives people just a want to share their testimony too, about your goodness and about how they have overcome the impossible things with you, Jesus. So I just pray all these things, and I thank you, Lord, for grace, for love, for hope, for faith to rise up into every single person who watches this video. In Jesus' mighty name. Thank you, Lord. Amen. All right. I hope this blessed you and didn't upset you. And yeah, please stay tuned, because so many more videos are coming. I have so much that I want to share about overcoming and how to overcome, and just more about my life. And I look forward, if you guys feel like sharing anything, please comment below. I love hearing about people. If you have a YouTube channel, or if you have somewhere where you've shared your story too, I'd love to be a part of your life too, and read what God has done in your life and what you've been able to overcome. And or if you're struggling, I'll reply to comments, so please, and please feel free to do that. So, all right, love you all. Thank you so much again for your time. If you like this channel, subscribe, share it. Please share it with people if you feel like it's going to bless them and help them overcome in any way, shape, or form. All right, you guys take care, and we will see you soon. Bye.